I'm gonna sit over here, buddy. No, wait, you sit.
I'll come to you. I love you, Ricky.
Love you too, dude. All right, we're going to start, so we'll open in prayer, then we're going to be reviewing. So you should have watched videos online. If you didn't, then, I already did the attendance for that. If you did watch those videos, I guess, online, and I marked you absent, you need to get in touch with me. So for last week, there was Tuesday, for you guys, it's Tuesday, Thursday, a couple of you were Monday, Wednesday. If you watch the videos and you go in there and it's like, I'm marked absent, you need to tell me. I will let you know or inform you, and I'll be actually informing AAC for this. A couple or more of you as students who I really trust watched videos on your phone, told me about it, so I believe you. It did not register on Populate. So evidently, like, if your phone ain't logged in the right way or something's happening on your phone, it doesn't kick into the time tracking log. So Populate shows, like, pops up, you know, you were on here for 34 seconds, you were on, you know, whatever. It shows what you downloaded, stuff like that. And so I marked you absent. I'm like, you didn't watch the videos because you weren't on there in the last week. And they had already told me. So I don't think that they were trying to like cheat the system even in that sense, because they like told me, hey, I watched your videos, they were cool, whatever. So all that to say, I'm not sure how that phone thing actually works in that sense, or it doesn't work. That might be something, I don't know if that happens in other courses or anything like that, but evidently, I don't know if it's when you're not on the school's network, or if it's when you're, or when you're what, I don't know, but phones aren't necessarily syncing with Populate in a full manner. So if you're marked absent for last week and you did watch the videos, or if you're smart, since I won't know you watch them, go watch them right now and then tell me you were here. So that's fine. We're going to be reviewing that quickly today and then starting, not quickly, we're going to be reviewing it pretty thoroughly today and then starting a new lecture anyway. So, okay, let's pray together and we will do that. Dear Lord, we thank you for today, and thank you that we are here. Thank you that we have the opportunity to be here, and that we are able to enjoy the fruits of literally past people's labors. You know, like if we think about our school, past people that founded a school or something, people that have kept it going through hell and high water ultimately. Or if we think beyond that for this course, you know, we're actually enjoying the fruits of the labors of people from 2,500 years ago who spent time writing about ethics because they were trying to figure out how to make good choices. Some of them were Christians. Along the way, we looked at a couple Christians who were trying to please you, like their choices they recognized needed to be pleasing to you. I pray that we would jump into that stream or jump into that line of, I mean, hopefully it's good people, philosophers, but really it's humans. Humans have been trying to figure out why we're here and what we're supposed to do for at least a few thousand years, depending how old we think things are. And we're here today, 2025, still trying to figure out what's the right thing to do and how to do it. I pray that you would aid us, the Holy Spirit. I pray that you'd lead us to all truth. Students, especially right now, are going to be writing their own method, so-called. I pray that it's led by you, that you're directing and pushing and calling and pulling all of us into better ways of thinking, more holy, more clean. Pray that we would recognize our own weaknesses, our own sins ultimately, our own blind spots for most people, and that when there is a blind spot, we'll fix it, given that we see it, and that we'll actually realize that that's what things like an ethic, a method are for. It tries to steer us out of our blind spots because the method should kind of put us on the right path. Pray that we'd all be seeking that, seeking to live holy lives that please you. help us have that goal in mind ultimately. Do this as we review systems today, help us to get any things we didn't understand cleaned up, and then as we move on from there, help us to move on to look at other people's systems. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Okay, let me finish up attendance here, make sure we're not missing anyone that's actually here. Is Angela here, Morgan? Or was she here yesterday, or anybody know? I can't remember for sure, but I guess that's just good. Okay, as far as, let me check it for your guys' class. As far as your philosopher papers, 2 of you haven't submitted yet, so those will be getting graded here pretty quickly, or started grading pretty quickly. Avalon will be doing most of that grading. I've graded a few, so if you got one back already, it's because I graded it. Avalon will start doing those, and that's a lot of them to do. So 40-some papers there to grade. Most of you will get good grades on that. They're supposed to. So if you did what you were supposed to do, you probably get a very good grade out of it. If you didn't do what you're supposed to do, then you don't get as good a grade. And if you didn't do it at all, there's a couple of you that never submitted, that can't get a grade unless you submit. So I do again accept late work. You can still submit it, get late work, and get some credit out of that. So I would advise you to do that. That paper is worth as much as the midterm. It's like the same amount of points, 15% of the grade. So you could still do that and should. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the old days, good days, right? Of the first day of class, when we went over lecture 1. And I'm gonna pull lecture 1 back up. This is, I guarantee you, the last time we're doing this. So we will review this real quickly, then we're gonna review all the systems, then we're gonna move on from it. Okay, slide 2, morality versus ethics. We're working on ethics, a method. What is your plan of attack? What's your game plan? What are the plays that you've pre-chosen and laid out that you're gonna go into life with? That's what this is about, the process of how to figure out what's right or wrong. We're not discussing what is right or wrong. We'll do that after midterm for the whole entire rest of the course. And hopefully you'll try to hold me to it, I'll try to hold you to it. It will more be me holding you to it generally. We'll ask questions like, what should I do? What should a Christian do? What should be the right thing? Say abortion, as an example. And people will be like rattling on about what they think about it, and I rarely say like, you know, you're just wrong because God don't want that. What I will say is, what is your ethic of why you're saying what you're saying? Is this a law you're following? Is this a goal you're trying to reach? Is this something in your heart? Like, why is abortion wrong if you say it is? And I try to get you to like always, you have to justify it according to your ethic. It will very quickly point out if you're pretty weak ethically. Because then you'll be like, well, just because that's what everybody knows. Like, that's not what everybody knows, obviously, because when the morality questions, we're only going to deal with questions that are difficult. We're not actually going to try to deal with easy questions, so they're always like difficult stuff. So your ethic needs to be well thought out. It needs to be firm, it needs to be solid, it needs to be known. And you're writing an essay about that, which I need to get up there soon so that you can do it. It's a take-home essay, ahead of time essay. I don't think I'm going to do it. It won't be there as a piece of paper, but if you want a paper, I can give you a piece of paper that has that. It's, you know, here's a piece of paper usually, write this essay, which is your ethic. And down here, it's like, explain it. That's where you get to write as many words as you want to write to explain the whole thing. Up here was, picture it. Or diagram it. Or sculpt it. Or sing it. Or something that is more kinesthetic, if that's your style of learning, or auditory, or some version of that. More visual is what I'm usually looking for. Like, give me a picture so I can see it. You ever hear this little cliche, a picture's worth 1,000 words? So that's literally what I'm thinking. You're drawing me a picture, and it's probably going to take you 1,000 words to describe it if you truly had a picture there. I don't do it based on word count. And when somebody's handwriting this, I've never left them room to write 1,000 words. Except for people who write in the tiniest font you have ever seen on the back of the page with like side margin. You're like, okay, because they want 1,000 words. I'm fine with that. I'm really happy with that, right? You thought through it. But I actually want the picture to be, or the song, or the, whatever you're gonna put there, to be what is really descriptive for you. Hopefully I could figure it out, look at the picture and be like, okay, I can see it, yeah, I see it, good, I see it. You better be able to. And the reason I want that is, when you run into a moral conundrum, which is, I need to do something right or wrong here, and I know it's right or wrong, there's something big happening, and I don't know what to do, this is over my pay grade. Here's a classic example, classic because it's philosophically classic at this point. It's also classic because people face it. If you're female, what if you were raped? That would be bad. Right? At least I think it would be bad for you. What if you got pregnant when you're raped? And then what if you're like, I never wanted this person, knew this person, what is this? Now there's a person inside of me. What am I supposed to do about that? Should I get an abortion? You're not running through a 1,000-word essay to figure that out. You're under too much stress, too much everything, too much whatever. Probably had a court case at the same time or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's not right that a person should go through that. You're not going through a 1,000-word essay to figure out your life. At best, you'll be so stressed, maybe you can remember the picture you drew. That's what I want, like, burned on your brain, or the play you drew out, or the sculpture, or the painting. People making paintings all the time. They're all in my office. It's all full of people's ethics paintings and stuff. They're like, you better be able to visualize that and be like, what do I do? I'm at the Planned Parenthood clinic, and there's protesters on the sidewalk telling me I'm going to hell. And there's also people at my church, if you're in a liberal church, telling me that I'm going to hell if I don't abort the baby because I'm cheating the baby and forcing it into poverty. And Planned Parenthood is making money off of me. And I just never actually wanted to get raped in the first place. If you're in a situation like that, which some one of you probably will be, maybe it won't be that one. There are literally people on this campus that you may or may not know that are the product of that. It happens. That literally happens with people that go here to school. You just don't know their background. That's when you need to have a picture that you didn't like. The picture was a flower. Yeah, that's meant that. And like, it needs to be there because that kind of stressors. Or maybe the doctor's screaming at you like, hey, you have power of attorney and medical something, executive privilege or whatever. Your mom was just in a car accident. She's on, do you want us to put her on life support or not? Because she has a DNR, but we don't think she maybe wanted that. So you make a decision right now. You got 5 minutes. We plug her into the wall or we don't. You're not thinking through a 1,000-word essay. Some one of you will be making that kind of decision within the next 10 years, guaranteed. Somebody in this room will be making a life support decision. Pretty much I would put like, $100,000 bet on it, and I think I'd win. Well, I don't bet or gamble, I invest. And I think I could invest. And within 10 years, some one of you will be making that decision of life support or not. And you only got like 5 minutes to make the decision. That's not happy. You don't read 1,000-word essays. The 1,000-word essay is for you to explain to me to understand it and explain to yourself to understand it. What is this thing about? It better be something I follow. Because otherwise, you have not used an ethic, not developed an ethic, not lived an ethic, and then you can't answer this question. What's right or wrong? Plug them into the wall or don't plug them into the wall? What's right or wrong? I have made that decision. Not in a sudden 5-minute thing, 5-day type thing. I had a person take this class before. We used to teach Extreme Week, a 1-week course, all done in 1 week of ethics. It's crazy. It's called Extreme Week. I had this old person, she was older, she's probably like 50 at that point. I was younger, but anyway, she took this class. She sat in the back row. Never seen her as like a person that drove your ticket. Okay, I don't really know this lady or whatever. She takes it. I use that life support one as the like the illustration the whole time. Just like throw it out there, the illustrations and whatever. And at the end of the course, she comes up on Friday afternoon, a 1 week extreme course, starts crying in front of me and is like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm like, you know, it's what I do, I teach, you know, like thanks for paying the tuition money, you know, like that's my salary, so like, yeah, sure, we're good. She's like, no, you helped me figure out that it was okay that I made a decision. I'm like, oh yeah, we all make decisions, make choices, hopefully your ethic is solid. She's like, yeah. My son was in a car accident 2 weeks ago before this course. Last week, I pulled the plug on him and had his life terminated. And I was like, that's great. I'm happy that I could help you because I didn't know that. And I wanted to use that as and she was thanking me like, you used that as the example all week. That's literally why I came to this course. I'm not even a student here. You know, she just signed up to be a student. Okay, great. There's all sorts of people around like that. And you don't realize they're around. They've made moral choices, big ones, under duress and stress and hard times. If they didn't have an ethic, they'll go to their grave wondering if they made the right choice. That's the type of stuff they avoid. That's the type of stuff people put the skeletons in the closet. They end up in the counselor's office. 20 years from now, I don't know if I made the right choice, and I've never processed it. That's because they made a choice of morality, but they didn't know if they had an ethic. I don't want you guys any longer in your lives to be in that situation. Some of you, I'm sure, have been in that situation. I've been on a go trip. I'll be on a go trip in 2 weeks. Hopefully my team, some of you are here, don't have this. I've been on a go trip where our students, I guess 2 students, but 1 student, is like, yeah, I had a rough Christmas break. What happened? I'm like, why such a rough Christmas break? Like, what's wrong with you? You seem down on your luck or whatever, down on life. And it's a girl who had the guy with her. It's like, oh, I made a big choice over Christmas break. Yeah, you guys got engaged, that's cool. Oh, we did, yeah. I'm like, you shouldn't really be depressed for that, but oh, I had to get an abortion over Christmas break. I'm like, I was not the only one leader there, and we're just like, are we supposed to, what? We're supposed to report this to student life? Or are you supposed to get kicked out of school? We're halfway through the semester on a go trip. We're trying to minister to people. You're the one that obviously needs help. And what do we tell the guy who's also on the go trip sitting right there who literally doesn't even care who you're getting married to? That was a choice that was made. It was a poor choice in my opinion. You know what, really, to this day, like stick the knife deeper in me? They just finished, it was a fall ethics course, they just finished taking ethics. And somehow on my ethics course they concluded, I guess, or he did, I think, that abortion would be justified. I was like, how do we get that? I mean, I like teach against it directly, or like, what happened? I stayed a student, they ended up, students too, they ended up graduating. Like, what are we supposed to do? I don't know. I don't feel like they made a good moral choice. Anyway, that's kind of stuff you're facing right now or will face very, very quickly. If you don't have this ethic figured out, you're toast. You won't make good choices because you won't know if you're making good choices. Okay, deontology, rule-based. Teleology, result-based. Virtue theory is internal, character-based or heart-based. Christians always like, your heart, you have a good heart, your heart posture. I do sometimes want to, you know, the other side of me, the not virtuous side. When like Pastor Dan's in chapel and he's trying to conclude it, and he's like, let us bring our heart posture before the Lord. And I'm like, I want to like say like, what if my heart posture is, I am a vicious person, full of vice. What do you want me to do? Which, I mean, I think he would say, like, come to the altar and like figure it out, get rid of it or something. But there is this issue of always calling it virtue theory. It's not always virtuous. If it's not virtuous, it's vicious. And plenty of people in the world have viciousness in their hearts, right? We're gonna go through these, again, review them, you saw videos, or if you would come to the Monday class or whatever. There's 3 of these deontologies, there's 4 teleologies, and you probably view it as 3 virtue theories. You need to know these for the exam, because I literally ask like specific questions about, like this version, that version, whatever. So if you're trying to get these straight, start to get ready to study for the exam, there's 3 subcategories of deontology. You need to know those 3. There's 4 teleologies, and there's kind of like 3 virtue theory ones, but not quite. Okay, let's review these real quick. Again, that stuff. Deontology and teleology are behavior-based. The judgment made on the morality is made on the behavior. So if abortion is wrong, then if you got an abortion, it was wrong. That's a behavior. And that can either be based on a rule or a law. There's a law that says no. In North Dakota, there's a law that says no. You don't get an abortion in North Dakota anymore. And if you did, it would be illegal. Not entirely sure what they do, because it usually rarely gets enforced as in tested. What happens if you do get an abortion in North Dakota, South Dakota? I think Nebraska maybe has a ban at this point. What do they do? Come and arrest you? Like put you in handcuffs? And you're like, what did you do? They're like, well, I got an abortion. And they're like, yeah, well, that was wrong in our state. They don't usually do that. What is the penalty for doing it? Hard to say, but that will be the judgment based on the law. If you're going to try to get a legal abortion, you need to go over the state line in Minnesota, because Minnesota promotes abortions. They enter an abortion sanctuary state, where they literally invite people to their state to have abortions and provide protections for them. Okay? That's their rule or their law. Teleological would be like, you telling me you got an abortion? Why did you do that? You know the world's population is crashing right now. We need babies. There's a demographic cliff starting in 2026 or 2027 from which humanity may never recover. You got an abortion, it was behavior that had a bad result. Most of you are like, you didn't say that to anybody, did you? Yeah, we should say that to everybody. You guys will live through peak population of the world and watch it go down exponentially. If any of you were getting an abortion right now, it would be a bad result, because you will end up with no one to take care of you when you are old in the entire world. Economies will be crashing in your lifetime around the world because there's no babies. So you have places like Hungary, Poland, like Yugoslavia, Belarus, these like Eastern European countries. They don't care if you had an abortion based on like Christian. You're like, you bad Christian, what did you do that for? Well, it was against it. They're like, we pay you money to have babies, and you chose to actually use money to not have the baby. You are now in trouble with the government because you used the money the wrong way. That's a teleological decision. Most of you are like, don't they care about the woman? Yeah, based on the results. She needed to produce a child. They pay you good money, actually like thousands of dollars. If you want to have babies and you can't afford it, move to Hungary right now. They will pay you tens of thousands of dollars to produce a child. It's a job. Government tax dollars paid to you to be married, so you have to be married and have a baby. Lots of you would be this, being oriented, virtue theory, like, it's about our hearts, please. Can't you just ask someone if did they love the child or something? That's virtue theory. That doesn't matter what you did, it matters like where your heart was at. One thing that's on the test, I know there's a question on this, and it's not on here, so you need to know it. Since World War II, 1950, let's say, since 1950, most Christian writing about ethics has been from this perspective only, which is virtue theory only. And that may or may not be doable. So in lecture 6, talks about virtue theory. Is it even possible to have virtue theory by itself anyways? Most philosophers say no. Most Christians since World War II have said yes. That's why most of you perceive ethics when you came into this course, and maybe still, unless I can convince you otherwise, you see ethics as how nice you are or not, which has no verse in the entire Bible that supports it. There's no verse in the Bible that says be nice, or God is nice to you, or Satan is unnicing, or it's not a Bible thing. That's how most of you live your ethics. What's nice or not? Be nice to your sister. Where did that come from? If you were a smart enough student, you should have challenged your parent on that and said, be nice to my sister sounds nice, but that's a philosophical statement with no bearing in the theology of 5,000 years of Judeo-Christian worldview. It's actually a liberal, progressive, political philosophy coming out of since World War II, based on Pelagianism, which is a heresy. Your parent would probably smack you and tell you shut up or something, but you'd be right. It's a heresy. Most of you are living your ethics as a heresy. You never realize it. It's Pelagianistic heresy to be nice as the driver of your ethic. Maybe you can call it virtue. What's the highest virtue? Being nice. Jesus never said that. So you have issues with Christianity as it's been construed in the Western world in the last, actually now 75 years. Okay, here's the 3 types of deontology. You read over in the video, they're here, they're in your book, you probably can figure them out. You can follow God, hopefully a good God called a commander who's good, but not everyone does. They follow mean gods, bad gods, and false gods. Natural law, Aquinas, Thomas Aquinas, remember these philosophers? He was a Christian, 1100 or so AD. He was like, hey, natural law rules the world. God made it. Like God made the world, that's why there's gravity. Natural law of gravity runs the show. It is God running it from behind because he made that law. And you don't need to know God to know about gravity. So follow gravity laws. Like it's a no-brainer, that's natural law. And then dictators or something like that. Okay, teleology has 4 types, and these go from, they're on a continuum. The way I'm presenting here anyway. They're on a continuum, which is like God made the law, to like, well, nature makes the law, to like, oh, a human makes the law. Now in teleology, like humans are making laws about themselves to get a goal. You do 4 of those that are teleological. You get down to like number 4 in teleology, and you're right next to virtue theory, which is, this is internal stuff. Okay, you can see these, the goal or the end product. Again, telos is the word. That's the Greek and Latin word that teleology is built off of. Telos. Have it up here as goal. If you were Greek and Latin and stuff, you would probably translate it as end, actually. It's the goal, it's the end towards which you're shooting. But most of them, like a Plato, he would have translated it as perfect. It's the perfect thing that you're trying to get to, the perfect goal, or the perfect idea. You're trying to get to it. And that would be, so I put each up. For this one, the perfect idea is you to advance your self-interest. You could do that as a Christian. Have most of these skewed on here is like coming from a Christian perspective, Christian lens. I mean, you could just be like a pagan lens, like, yeah, I'm advancing my self-interest. What do I care about loving my neighbor? Well, I have a Christian skew to this already. Like, well, that would be what you'd want to do, wouldn't it? So hopefully you'd say yes, and then you can see how it doesn't always work out. Okay, utilitarianism. I'm going to emphasize this one a lot. I feel like I have. This is the one that most of you think is Christian because you grew up in the United States, probably, or even the entire Western world. And Bentham and Mill, the last 2 philosophers you studied, were 17 to 1800s, which is right when the United States was forming, and the French Revolution and various things around the Western world. And so you actually see this as correct, because it's your philosophy that you've just like
That's what America does. You know, like, that's what the UK does. That's what they do in Australia. Like, that's what they do. That's just by worldview. That was not by their Christian commitment. Bentham and Mill, if you remember, the last two philosophers you studied, were non-Christians writing against God. So the people who developed this and like wrote it out were literally trying to find something not Christian that they could follow. That doesn't mean you can't be a Christian and follow this, but that's not where it came from. So if you view this as like, that is just naturally, normally good. You learned that in kindergarten. That's because you grew up in a Western society influenced by Bentham and Mill, secular philosophers who pushed this so hard it got written into the U.S. Constitution. And like now we have a goal that the most people could have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we want them all to have it. And if they don't, we'll fight a civil war over it to make sure some extras are included. And now it's being debated about, for instance, immigrants, especially if they're illegal, so-called immigrants. Do they have a right to have the greatest good also? Because what if that takes away American jobs? Then how do we get the greatest good for the greatest number? And you'll hear politicians in the nation say this. The greatest good for the greatest number is to let the illegals come here and do the jobs the Americans won't do, like mow your lawn. Because it's still greatest good for greatest number of people, even though it breaks the law. It's like a huge debate in the United States, and like no one knows what to do about it, because they're building it off of certain ethics. Maybe don't know why they have that ethic, and they're like, what do I do about it? So they do things like, I didn't feel like mowing my lawn, I'll let somebody else do it. And that's the greatest good, at least they get some money out of it. And you know, all the weird stuff, complicated stuff like that, it's being debated around the world politically right now. Okay, emotivism is good taste in ethics, or really in morals, just good morals. They're a good person, they're a good guy. Tell girls around here, like, marry a good guy. What does that mean? It just means they like, sort of like have it. They like make good choices. Even though they don't know how, they just sort of like do. That would be this previous one here, emotivism, or is really close to subjectivism, which is really close to virtue theory, like marry a good guy. Somebody would be like, how do I know if he's a good guy? Do you have a good guy list? Well, yes, indeed, most faculty members do have a good guy list, but you could do that. But you're like, how do they get on the good guy list? You just sit down and eat lunch with them, and you tell if they're on the good guy list. That's emotivism. Like, you can just see their good taste. Like, not hard to figure out. I would be more of a realist in that sense of Aristotle, and be like, we'll measure it. We will go check their grades. We'll go check their chapel attendance. We'll go check their dorm life. We'll go check their student life points. We'll go check whether they go to church. We'll just make the measurements and get on the good guy list. The only way they make it on it then is if they're a liar, like a hypocrite, puts on a false front, and then hopefully that gets exposed at some point if you know them well enough. But many of you make choices based on like emotivism or subjectivism. I'm pretty sure this is a good guy, like, this is what they are. Okay. Relativism is technically for a group, subjectivism for an individual. This is very, very, very close to virtue theory. It's basically almost is virtue theory. If you're doing it this way, it's a goal. There's a goal. If you're going to flip it to virtue theory, which is what we're going to on lecture 6 here real quick, virtue theory is like, it's not actually a goal that's outside of me. It's just a goal on the inside of me, which is to be virtuous. And that's then, again, hard to measure. Remember Plato, who's an idealist, he's a virtue theorist, idealist. He ends up being forced to / choosing to, whatever, commit noble suicide, because people are like, virtue theory doesn't work the way you described it. And Plato actually would agree with them, which is weird. It's weird how Aristotle got, it's had a long history, how Aristotle got Plato to commit noble suicide when Plato was literally living according to what he believed, which is, yeah, basically nobody does have virtue theory. Nobody has virtue. So yeah, virtue theory doesn't work. very much. Works for 5% of the people, 2% of the people, 1% of the people, and actually, I told you I was skewing those numbers. In Rome, if I remember right, I think, you can double check this, I think there was only 60 senators. Because I think that's why the US has senators, 2 in each, and it kind of comes out to the right amount and stuff, 100, but I think they only had 60 senators. What Plato was saying is that whole academy, which was their college, was to train to who gets to be a senator. Like, you got there, you're worthy of it. We're talking there's only like a couple hundred people in all of Greece. So Plato would be Greece, and then Rome later, so Greece. There's only a couple hundred people in all of Greece that Plato actually thinks are virtuous. All the rest aren't good enough to be there. They're not good. And that's what Aristotle is reacting to. Like, there's got to be more than 200 people in this whole country that can have virtue. That's what you're faced with virtue theory. It's what I would like to ask the chapel at times. Occasionally I make altar calls when I'm preaching. I try to convince people, trying to like persuade to think like, hey, everybody, like stand up and be responsive to God and kind of like have your thing. If you don't want to stand up, if you wish I would leave you alone and you wish that like this wasn't about you, you stay standing up and the other people sit down. It's like a reverse altar call. If you wanted to come up here, you maybe didn't even need to. I think we all need to all the time, but like basically I'm saying like if you feel like you have a vicious heart, not a virtuous heart, then maybe that's the person we want to talk to. And we don't usually do it that way. It's usually kind of the opposite. Because we can't say that. If you're in this virtue theory only nicety movement of Christianity, you can't tell anybody that they're a jerk, even though everyone knows they are. Because there's a good guy list, there's also a jerk guy list. There's also the female versions of those lists too around here. So not just guys we're picking on here either. There's the girls and the like, no, don't. It's a disaster. Like, no, please. And blatantly, you know how the persons get. Like, if the girl on the list is really good looking, she could be on the vicious list, and she'll still get some guy that'll chase after her. And you're like, stop. She's not good looking enough to overcome her heart. Same for the guy list, etc. Guys might need to have some money or something like that, Like suddenly they're a good guy because they got cash. That's virtue theory that doesn't work. It breaks. So you have to figure out, does virtue theory work or not? You've probably gathered from my sort of illustrations, I don't think it works by itself. I think Plato lost because he figured out that virtue theory doesn't work, and it was like, Plato, you're a virtue theorist, it don't work. Why don't you lose? Okay. Do virtues come from principles? This would be rules first, and then you develop a good heart. That is how Trinity does it. Your handbook that you supposedly sign, which I wonder, do you guys do what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to read the student handbook before you even accepted your acceptance into Trinity. As part of applying, you are supposed to have read the handbook and said you agree to this page. You're supposed to have agreed to live by the community covenant or whatever they call it. And you signed that. And then you find out most people never read it. So like, what's up? That's the idea. We made rules. That you follow the rules. And if you don't, you get points. So there's a law. And hopefully your heart will work out. And we all recognize that, freshmen need a little extra space to work it out because their hearts are kind of whacked. And hopefully by a sophomore, they sort of get going on it. And by a junior, if you're not figured it out with a good heart, suddenly we're faced with like, I'm not sure you're going to get a good heart. What's happening? The rules have put the boundaries for you the whole time. What's wrong with your heart? Where's your virtue? You've had 2 or 3 years of living under these rules. Didn't your heart get in line yet? That's what we're thinking about, I would say, a junior. If that goes till you're a senior, certain programs, for instance, I'm the head of the Bible theology ministry thing. Do you know that we occasionally, I think it's happened like 3 times in the time I've taught here, so that'd be like on average once every 6 years. We remove a student as a senior from the ministerial program, and we say to them, we've all determined, kind of school-wide, You are not going to be a minister with Trinity name. You are not a good guy. You are a bad guy. You've had 4 years. The rules hemmed you in and your heart never actually got it. That's that number one view. And we say, guess what? You get flipped to a general studies degree and you get to graduate. And don't you dare ever say that you like were a minister from Trinity, because we'll like make sure we hunt you down later or something. Like, because they're too bad of a heart. We're like, our judgment is that you are too bad. It's almost like, hey, Plato, commit noble suicide because it's not working. This is a different view, which is, you're all probably good. You got virtue, so let's just develop some laws based on that. So what do you guys think about how you should treat young men and women in romantic relationships? You're like, we don't want anybody to get any like forced or anything. Okay, let's write a rule for that. What should we call it? Like only consensual stuff or something? We write a rule in our handbook based on what students, what if students are here? I've had he didn't last long, but this is probably 15 years ago now. It was down in room 150. Room 150 did exist the whole time I've ever been here. It was sitting in room 150. That room used to be switched, so the chalkboard stuff was on that wall. So I would have been standing here looking this way. He was sitting on that, what would be my back right. Not a great student. In Intro to Worldview and Theology, and we were talking about worldview stuff, and I don't know how, whatever, romance, sex, whatever, something come up. And I made a comment or an illustration or something based on consensuality, like whatever. And he literally said out loud in class, because somebody said like something about rape. He literally sat and with that right hand side of the class said, it's only rape if it hurts. Otherwise, she should just shut up. He said that right in class. And he was dead serious. He wasn't just, people trying to say things that like make everybody mad. He was just dead serious. I was like, oh, we're gonna have to talk about that later. Actually, he didn't last long here. Actually, that was in the fall semester. I don't think he made it past fall semester, but thank God, ultimately, like, because what you're saying by that, even as you were all like, what? You're saying, hey, go commit noble suicide. You don't have no virtue in there, and you're never getting it. Get away from us, you evil guy. I don't know what he did, or I didn't follow his life, or whatever, but I tend to think view number 3 is the real view. Somehow, the goodness of your heart in some small, really small way gets like bounded by rules, and your heart sort of grows to fill those rules. And then out of the goodness of your heart, you develop like another layer of rules. And your heart sort of like gets in line with it, and then it grows, and hopefully it keeps growing. So you can end up like doing the good thing and knowing the rule that it goes by. That is really optimistic. I like to be an optimist. I'm hoping view number 3 works, because otherwise it doesn't work. And we don't get virtues in our hearts, and rules don't help. That's what we hope. You can see this progression. There's freshmen that come in and you're like, oh my God, I better help them out, because they're probably not gonna make you like. And then they're like, thank you, you saved my life, basically, as a freshman. And then they're sophomore, and they're like in the dorm, and they're like, I gotta do it right now. I gotta like get it going now. And if the shoe fits right. And as a junior, they're like, I love Trinity. I practically worship this place. It saved my life, and it is my family, and I want to be an RA. I want to be the one that enforces the rules. You're like, you hated the rules. Now you want to enforce the rules. And then they do that. They like grew into it. The virtues of their heart grew into the rules. They realized the rules were good, but then they want to like develop that virtue in others. That's view number 3. It's optimistic. It doesn't always work, because there's the others who, by the time they're a junior, they figured out how to find all the loopholes in the rules. They found a way to skirt those rules without getting in trouble, not producing points. Is there a thing that, so you already know this, white glove room checks, can you not open a closet if it's closed? Yeah. Or you can't open a closet, okay. That's a rule that students got, because I just kind of found this out, for like the 24 years I've been here, that's only been a thing for like 2 years or something. Like before that, literally you signed a thing that
and if it comes down to this, your little handbook is not gonna be a thing there. So legally, your handbook that's not accurate. If the college owns property called a dorm, a landlord has the right to go into their own property. They can like look in a closet if they feel like it, it's their property. Legally, they could do that, right? Like, if I own my house, I can legally go look at what I wanna look at. So they just made this rule, it's like, well, we'll just do it this way. But now, didn't you get points if there's trash in your room, untaken out trash? Isn't there points for that, technically?
Yep.
Have any of you been like, oh crap, or whatever version of a Christian cuss word you use? You're like, it's white glove fruit. Pitch it in the closet, close the door, like, I'll take the trash out later. No one's done that?
I've done it
Oh,
many
yeah.
times.
Yes, there were people doing it. Kinsey's like, people aren't like that? Yes. they
Maybe
do.
not with trash. Maybe not with trash. I do my
Does anybody throw their dirty laundry in there? Let's not answer this one. Does anybody throw their drugs in there? Don't you realize there's people that do that too? They hide them in the ceiling, they throw them in the closet, they do other weird things, like things that I guess we just won't talk about, but some other weird things that would be worse than that, and they hide them. And then eventually, nowadays, I think now, trying to be nice to you, right? So we won't search your closet unless we suspect something. We're kind of like, hey, we need to search your closet. It's kind of like a search warrant almost, which is totally fake. Like, the school property is school property. They can do whatever they want with it, right? Just like the guy shows up, he's like, your room is on fire. Oh, I can't open your closet. I'm like, come on. People put stuff in those closets, and we find out they're not as virtuous as we thought. It's an unpleasant experience, because some of the things that get found are illegal. Some of the things that get found are clear trails of evidence of mistreatment of other people. Maybe I'll put it that way. There's some specific things I'm thinking of. And you figured out a way to take advantage of the handbook. Your virtues didn't grow to meet the rules, so-called. Your vices grew. You figured out a way to not get caught for those rules and still be even more vicious. And occasionally, we have to call in the cops. Like, guess what? The cop will come up and he'll search your room. And the college is the one who gets to sign the search warrant. We give the cop permission to search a room. And some of the stuff that's gotten found over the years is not stuff that you stay on campus for. Let's just say you go somewhere else. So let's just leave it at that. But anyways, you could ask people that are around for a story. Okay, this is lecture 7, and this is where we're headed. I want to introduce it right now for a couple minutes. Today we're going to do Scott Ray. He's your textbook author, if you didn't know that. Next time we're going to do Scott Ray. The time after that, we're going to do a guy named John Kilner. These are 2 books. They're 2 examples of an ethical system. I'm using them as like, hey, here's an example. They've written it down. We could look at their system. It would be their explanation of their essay. And Scott Ray, your textbook, has 7 steps, which is a lot. If you are faced in 5 minutes with deciding whether to pull the plug on somebody, whether they live or die, because they need life support and DNR and do not resuscitate order, all this sort of stuff. So like 5 minutes, that's less than 1 minute per step. You better be able to run 7 steps really fast, like get it done. His first step, which is what we'll look at today, okay, he says every moral choice should go through this. Like, this is what you should do. This is your textbook author. Do this. First step is gather the information. I think if Ray said, 5 minutes from now we have to make a choice, I think he probably put like 3 or 4 minutes into step 1. Gather all the info. Get it from every direction. You can't make a good choice without knowing what's going on. And he's very adamant. One of the reasons I use him even, I respect this. He doesn't say you should get Christian info. He actually encourages you in some ways to get non-Christian info. So he says things like, ask the doctor, not the pastor. So a lot of you, if you were faced with like, my mother is either on life support or not, you might get one phone call, Lifeline. pastor. Call the pastor. Pastors face this all the time. Professors face this. What should I do? People come to my office like, what should I do? I'm like, I'm not making this choice for you. I'll just try to talk you through it, but I'm not making the choice about whether you should get the abortion. Like, I'm not making that choice. I'll try to just like coach you to make your own choice, something like that. He's saying, don't call the pastor. Call the doctor who knows the most about the stuff. Call the philosopher. That's why I have you reading these philosophers. If you learn, and you're like, pretty sure natural law. Natural law says if somebody doesn't breathe, they die. I think I have to follow natural law. Maybe that's a piece of your information. Like, you need to gather it from all the directions, and then you can try to make a choice and go through those steps next time. If you're behind on your reading or some such thing, you should be reading chapters 2 and 4 in your textbook. That's this stuff, like that's great stuff. It's his model or method, and that's due for the final, that's due for the midterm. I want to get the course done too. That's due for the midterm, then we have a whole other half the course. So chapters 2 and 4 you need to be reading right now. Oh, brother.